Okay guys, this is 3B once again. This is the second part of the new specialization overviews. Now you should already have seen the Shadowborn Adept and Mastery overview, minus the stats for the Fallen Angel, which will come later. I think now I'm going to go to the exact opposite, which is Keeper of the Peace Adept. Alright, so we'll bring this up so that you guys can see how this works. Bear in mind, these two are really the most diametrically opposed to each other. Okay, so there we go. This is your innate ability that you get. Okay, so when you start with this, you automatically have an additional 75 points relation with independent cities. So that sets you up towards having a vassalized system and then eventually buying them out just that little bit quicker. Okay, now if you recall, in the Shadowborn there was a ability called Seeds of Distrust that is literally created to mess up this. Alright, so I know you guys might have been thinking, well, why would I use that? It seems a bit finicky. Now you know why you would use it. Okay, and I can see this coming to play because if someone's got, someone's going for the mediator and they're buying up cities left, right and center, well, you can just stop them and really throw a wrench in their plans. Alright, especially as if you look at the Keeper of the Peace Master, the inherent skill there is called Bearer of Light, which is it reduces the delay between diplomatic actions with independent cities by 1 turn. So you go up and let's say it takes, the independent city says it wants 4 turns before it will agree to become a vassal. Okay, if you're a Keeper of the Peace Master, then that is now 3 turns. So exponentially, if you're doing that, if you go out in your first few turns and you get like 4 or 5 cities, okay, so first of all they're friendlier anyway, and the time between them being independent and offering you open borders, offering you vassalage, and then offering to join you completely, there's a 1 turn reduction there. So overall you're looking at probably like a good 3-4 turns earlier than anyone else where you're going to have that city under your control. And with 1 city, okay, it might not make a difference, but if you're playing, for example, a slightly larger map, a large or an extra large map, 5-6 cities under your control earlier than anyone else, exponentially it adds up. It builds you up that what Joe Munger likes to call your turn advantage. Okay, Safeguard, combat spell. This is, I like to think of this as a timeout. Okay, so it's quite cheeky. You send a unit in, it does its damage, and you really think, you know what, that's like my key unit, I don't want to lose it. Well, you just cast Safeguard, right? Excellent. It protects that unit for the next 2 turns. That unit is immune. Okay, the downside is that unit can't do anything, alright? But I could see this being really quite an interesting crowd control mechanic as well, especially if you imagine you're in a city and someone's attacking you. You park a unit, and it could be any unit now, not necessarily a tough unit with first strike, like ordinarily you put a pikeman, but you park that unit where the enemy is going to go and just put it there. Alright, it just blocks off the area. Okay, now they're not going to inflict any attacks of opportunity, but it's just an interesting little thing to do. Now, Rally of the Populace. You may have seen this in one of the dev journals where Leonard was writing, or was it Sickbook? One or the other was writing about getting your enemy cities to come to you. Alright, basically the idea here behind this law-wise is that you're such a benevolent ruler that a city is thinking to itself, right, I don't like this other guy, and we think we're going to have a better chance with you, and this spell pushes them over the edge and gets them to come towards you. Alright, it means you're much more likely to trigger a betrayal city event where they give you a quest saying, liberate us. When you come to us, we will open our gates for you. We might even give you a unit or 2 to help you fight. Okay, which is a pretty interesting thing to do, because remember, it's all about controlling those cities. So first of all, independent cities have joined you, and secondly, enemy cities want to join you. Right, now this is a very obvious pick, I believe, if you want to go for the new victory condition, which I'm sure you've all read about, the Great Unifier or the Great Uniter or whatever you want to call it. That victory condition, which involves building however many beacons you want, each beacon for each race. So if you have this, build that beacon, and people are happier generally. You want more cities, which means more population, more racial governance points, and more importantly, less for your opponents, which all feeds in towards you winning the game without having to kill everyone. Right, bolster. Right, well, you can read that. Do not suffer from morale penalties until the end of combat. That's all your units, okay? So think about it this way. A lot of the necromancer skills are about inflicting and then exploiting despair. Well, that's a natural counter to it straight away. So if you think you're going to face a necromancer, this might be a good choice. And if can't remember, but I think on the Shadowborn Adept there was something about, where was it, Black Lightning? Yeah, inflict spirit break, and I think that it gets countered by this as well. Go back to Keep of the Peace Adept. Okay, so again, it's just a way, so strategically you're controlling the map, and now you can imagine if you're halflings, basically, right? The key thing to halflings is their high morale boosts their luck, which means they can get away with fighting things that they have no business fighting. The counter to that is to wreck their morale, and there's various ways you can do that. Ruin their terrain, do it in combat. If you have bolster, Keep of the Peace with halflings means those halflings are always going to be lucky in that battle. That might be enough to win you an otherwise close battle. Right. Spiritual freedom. Someone was asking what meditate does. Well, we'll click on that in a second. Hopefully this should work. Remember, guys, there was an ability, and you know what, I'm really bad with names, but there's a Shadowborn ability that does something similar but gives you life stealing and makes units in that city and your heroes dedicated to evil. Well, this is the good version, okay? Hopefully this works. Meditate. Only available in game. Oh, I hate when it does that. Right, and we have to go back and find, oh hello, this is new. That's a nice little change. Extreme range. So there's only 2 extreme range abilities. This is quite interesting. I had no idea this was in. That's a new change that must have come in one of the recent patches, which is a nice little quality of life improvement. Anyway, I am getting distracted. Back to skills. And back to Keep of the Peace Adept. Where do we go? Spiritual freedom. Meditate. Right, so what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to make a note, and along with the stats of the 3 angels, I'm going to say find the Tome of Wonders description for meditate. Off the top of my head, it's 3. You need 3 action points, so you need to be in the green, and the unit does this, and basically it renders a random buff, and there's 3 buffs. One is +2 fire damage, and then there's a plus resistance. So I think it's a pretty good thing, because think of it like a very focused, focused ability, focused self-buff ability, that if you cast that at the beginning of a fight, that's going to help you throughout the fight. That's spiritual freedom. Let us go to Keep of the Peace Master. Okay, like I said, Bearer of Light, that's the innate one. Aura of Inspiration. This is a similar idea to what you have with the Dwarven Aura of the Ancestor, which is a Dwarven racial governance pick, which lets Dwarven Firstborn affect units next to it. Okay, this is Inspiring Aura, which you will get if you're Keeper of the Peace Master. Combat spell. Target friendly unit gets extra damage, and boost the morale of everyone. So you might want to pair this with bolster, which means your negative morale effects aren't going to hit you. Plus, you're going to get positive morale and extra damage. Okay, I can see halflings turning into real powerhouses here, simply because of the morale here. So that +2 damage, +3. You can see this working really quite well on anything necromancer, because there's quite a bit of a spirit weakness there, right? Okay, and Keeper's Creed. All friendly dedicated to good units gain some buffs. Right, again, It's all good stuff. And I believe what was the opposite for Keeper of the Peace? Master. Where are you? Shadowborn Master. Right? Malediction? No. That. Okay. So this is the opposite. You can either have extra resistance, spirit protection, and lightning damage versus extra defense and extra spirit damage. Okay. So in effect that works out at 1.6 because of the protection. It's still point plus 2 melee damage. Alright, Shield of Light, what do you do? This is quite an interesting one that I like. Alright. So if you're a theocrat and you have Shield of Light, I'm sure you guys can see how this works, alright? Basically think of it as like a light aura, if that makes sense. Okay. You've all seen the effects of frost aura, fire aura, etc., etc. So this is a similar sort of idea. Okay, natural fit with theocrats. Okay, because spirit damage on top of more spirit damage. This is quite an interesting ability. And then we have this. You have the Archangel, you have the good angel, right? Who I shall be exploring soon once we actually start playing. So that was Keeper of the Peace overview.